Stephanie, I would love you to introduce Karla because I don't want to shortchange at all. I mean, we have such a special guest. We talked about Karla last week when we gathered for the first time. Karla's a consecrated woman who does so much spiritual mentoring for so many women. I've had the privilege of working with her in Mission Youth, and just to see her interact with the many people we meet on the street, the missionaries themselves, the young children. As I said to you last week, to me, she truly embodies the feminine genius and feminine beauty as described by John Paul II. There is an inner beauty, which is the love of Christ, that just radiates within and out of her. So she'll probably tell you a little bit more about herself. I should know more, and I don't. But I'm just glad to get to know her, and we're really blessed by this wonderful formation series that we're going to enjoy this year. Welcome, Karla.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, my voice is not too loud, that's why they thought it would be better that I wear a microphone just to make sure that everybody can hear. So thank you, Katie, for that introduction, and thank you also, Steph, for the invitation and all the communication and the coordination. And she was like, I hope I'm not driving you crazy. I'm like, no, actually it helps me a lot that she keeps me focused and with deadlines and all these things, so that's great. Thank you so much. And well, just a brief introduction. So I am Karla Amezcua. I'm a consecrated woman of Regnum Christi. I've been consecrated for 19 years. This coming August, I'll be celebrating my 20th anniversary, so I'm already thinking of what party I'm gonna have to do to celebrate, right? 20 years belonging to Christ, and it's a joy, and also especially to see how we have also like walked through difficult and blurry moments in our life as consecrated women. And Regnum Christi members, you know all our story. So it's just a beautiful year for me to praise God for His call. And I'm very happy to be here. I live in DC, but I, like, in the last 2 years, well, I've been in DC for 1 year. And before that, I was in Rhode Island. And when I was in Rhode Island, I started the process of my green card because I am originally from Mexico. So because of my green card, I couldn't do all the international trips that we would do over there in Rhode Island with the boarding. I worked in a boarding school. So the girls would have all these trips and I couldn't go with them because I couldn't go out of the country because of my migration status. But that in the moment I was very annoyed. I was like, I wish I could go, and I was doing all these interior complaints to Jesus. But then it became something very providential because thanks to that situation is that I started coming to Philly, and I started helping Father Moriarty with the missions that he does here in Kensington. So I was just fascinated by that mission, and then getting to know all the young women that we have here in the Regnum Christi section and all the Bible studies that they run. And I've been asked, can you give me spiritual direction? Can you give me? So I've been pretty busy. Actually, I think I have more young women in spiritual direction from Philly than from DC. So this year, we are trying to make more official my presence here in Philly. So at least now for me it's a gift that I'll be able to come here with the Regnum Christi women, that is you, to give you these formation talks in the topic that is like my most favorite topic in the universe. And I actually sometimes I think that it's my personal charism. You know how when you study the spiritual charisms of the Holy Spirit, you get to see that there is these institutional charisms, like the one that we all have in Regnum Christi, how God can call all these group of people to participate of one same charism, right? But then within those institutional charisms, there can be also personal charisms. And that's a journey that you, I hope you can walk through so that you can also find what is your personal charism, right? And many years ago, I just started to have this intuition that maybe my personal charism, that is, you can ask Jesus this question: what is the message that God wants to transmit to humanity through my person? It's a very deep question, right? what is the message that God wants to transmit to humanity through my person, through who I am? God made me in a special way with my temperament, my personality, my experiences, right? Also our history shapes us in such a way that then we become a message from God. And it's obviously a beautiful message. Sometimes we wonder, but I have nothing to contribute to this world. I'm just like this little... Well, you are a message that nobody else can actually transmit. And that is something very powerful. And when I started experiencing this, I just realized maybe part of the message that God wants me to transmit to the people around me is the power that we hold in our eyes. The power that we hold, and not because my eyes always know how to see other people. No, it's not that, oh, I got it. No, for me, it's a journey. It's my mission to get there, but I feel also it's my mission, or it can be everyone's mission also, to go deeper into this topic, right? So anyway, Steph last semester took a course that Mary Smith, another consecrated, and I did online. It was an online course, and it was the same topic, but I guess Stephanie was very touched and moved, and many women that took the course were also very, it was like an eye-opener. And for me, this topic is also fascinating because, I mean, we all have eyes, right, in our face. And yet, very little we have reflected on it, on what it means, and what power I hold there in my eyes. So anyway, this is just like the introduction. We chose this title, Unveiling the Transformative Power of the Gaze. And also knowing especially this, if you can see this quote that is underneath, because you are a mission. It's something that Pope Francis has been stating repeatedly. I don't have a mission, I am a mission. And that actually changes the perspective that we can have of our missionary or apostolic work that we do as Regnum Christi members, because many times we think, oh, what am I good at, right? And then if I am good at that means that is my mission. But it's not about what you do, but about who you are. And we go back to that question, what is that message that God wants to transmit to humanity through your person? And the more we create this awareness and we pray about it and we dive into that adventure of discovering what is that message that I am? It's not a message that I have, but that I am. Then the more we will be able to irradiate that message just through the way we look at it, at other people, right? The way we use our eyes. So anyway, why talking about the gaze, and why has this been, at least for me personally, such a powerful topic? Well, and here I'm also adapting the topic to Regnum Christi members, right? We are in the RC Women formation talks. So of course, our history, like 10 years ago, all of a sudden, 11 years ago or so, we received this terrible news about our founder. And I remember me as a consecrated, I had been consecrated only for like 8 or 9 years. And then, of course, you receive this news and you're like, okay, and now what? So should I just go back home? Was this just a fake call? Was it just my invention, right? And because something that is true is that when I got consecrated, there was no discernment. Like, I joined Regnum Christi the day I got consecrated. Like literally, I never went to Regnum Christi sections. I didn't grow in ECYD or in a school. Like, I knew nothing about Regnum Christi. I just knew that God called me, because that's what I think, that he called me one day when I went to Rome, and John Paul II saw me directly straight into my eyes, and in his gaze, I just heard very clearly the voice of God telling me, what would you answer if I asked you to give up everything for me? And by then, I had met the consecrated women just once, like literally. And I didn't even remember that they were consecrated women. I was like, oh yeah, the ladies on skirts, right? Now we can also use pants, but now I don't know how it would be. But I remember that for me, it was like, oh yeah, those cool ladies that wear skirts and talk about God. And so when I heard that voice of Jesus through the eyes of John Paul II, I was like, oh, does he want me to be one of them? No, but I am dating, like I love parties, I love boyfriend, like I had all these tons of boyfriends, right? Like a lot. One at a time, but a lot. And then yeah, it was just like crazy how God literally like took me from this world, and all of a sudden I'm consecrated to God. And so then obviously when we received the news, I started making myself all these questions. Is this the right place for me? Maybe I can go back. My boyfriend, I think he hasn't gotten married. Maybe I still have a chance, you know? And of course, we saw all kinds of reactions. There were some other consecrated women that were like, let's pretend that nothing happened. We're just gonna continue living our lives, right? Like out of fear, because of course you feel your grounds are shaken. And I was more like the revolutionary, like, no, let's change everything. And of course, to meet the balance between those two positions, or those 10 positions that we would find in our communities, it created a lot of crisis, right? And in my good desire of bringing that renewal that I thought in that moment that we needed, I faced a lot of judgments from other consecrated women that I lived with, just as I was judging them, right? I'm not saying that I was this victim, but it was a very, very tough moment in my life, because apostolically speaking, I was living in Colombia, and I would do missions, and I would do this, something similar to what Father Michael Moriarty is doing here, but I would do it there with the prostitutes and with homeless, and very, very powerful experiences in working with the poor and with all the young women in the city. And I just felt like I had a lot of success, apostolically speaking, and people would like appreciate what I was doing for them. But then I would go back home, and I just felt those gazes and those looks of, oh, here she comes again, you know? And yeah, I was pretty annoying because I was very impatient with the process. I wanted all those changes to happen immediately. And of course, I mean, they have been taking 10 years. So anyway, in that moment, I started feeling this terrible contradiction of who am I? Am I this person that all the people outside think I am? This amazing consecrated woman, this awesome spiritual director, and this beautiful preacher, and this woman that has all this energy and apostolic zeal? Or am I this stubborn woman that doesn't know how to forgive and how to wait for the pace of other members of her community? Who am I? And there I started feeling the impact that the way other people looked at me was starting to have in my own life, because it started to create that mental and spiritual and emotional confusion of who am I? Where can I find my identity? Right? And then I had the blessing of taking a course in Spain about mentoring and accompaniment. And it was just more than a course, it was a beautiful experience where God actually allowed me to have this experience in prayer, where He told me, Karla, you will only find your identity in my eyes, in the way I look at you. And there I just started to experience, I am an event in the heart of Jesus. And that event is actually a beautiful event, right? It's not a heart attack that He's receiving when He sees me, or it's not that He's like, oh, right, all stressed out when I show up. No, it's when He looks at me, there's an event that happens in His heart. And when I contemplate that event, when I try in prayer to go and dive into His eyes all the way to His heart, and I am able to read what is going on in the heart of God when He looks at me, then I find my true definition. And then I am free from the pressure of having to fit in a society where they don't accept me, and then I feel judged, and then I start getting into that confusion. There was no longer any confusion. It's as if Jesus all of a sudden was telling me, I can see all those defects that lead these people to judge you, and still I love you. And I can see also all those talents that these people see in you that lead them to admire you. But I don't love you because of those talents. I love you even if you didn't have those talents. You are lovable, not because of what you are doing, that is good, and you are lovable despite of all those things that you do that make these people have a hard time loving you, right? So for me, it's like it has been such a powerful experience, the gaze of God, and also for me it has been a lesson, right? And I haven't learned the whole lesson. I'm still learning from the gaze of Jesus, but that is why at the beginning I said this, I consider it my mission, because there is nothing more important for me than to look at people just as Jesus looks at me. And I pray to Jesus every day, right? Because I'm very impatient, and sometimes I'm like, these ladies just like, come on, wake up, right? Or you start just making judgments of other people. And I'm always, how is Jesus looking at her? How is Jesus looking at this person? Why am I so incapable of doing that, of imitating that loving gaze? So that is the reason why I thought it would be beautiful that we share this. Also knowing that our charism in Regnum Christi has a lot to do with personal accompaniment, right? And in that personal accompaniment, there's eye contact. And that's something that I actually love about our charism, that, you know, charisms in the church are meant to transmit a particular aspect of the personality or the virtues of Jesus to humanity. So for example, the missionaries of charity, they are meant to portray the poverty of Jesus, right? And this beautiful attitude of service that Jesus had, becoming the poorest of the poor and washing the feet of all the 12, right? And becoming the most humble of all the servants. And that is what the missionaries of charity try to portray. Now, what is that aspect of Jesus that we as Regnum Christi members are called to portray? It's not so much the poverty, but I mean, of course, we are called to live poverty, but it's not our expertise, we could say. Our expertise is that aspect of Jesus where he didn't do all these mass crowds and come and I'll heal you all at the same time, right? He could have done that with all the crippled, and he could have filled the Colosseum, the Colosseum didn't exist in that moment, did it? Oh yeah, it did exist. But he didn't do that. He went one by one and he looked into their eyes and he asked them, what can I do for you? And in that personal contact is where he made all those miracles. And that is the aspect of Jesus that Regnum Christi is called to irradiate. That you have your own value, and you have a name, and you have a story, and I want to know that story. And that is why I love these missions that we do in Kensington, because we go, and there was a guy in DC that asked me recently, he started questioning me, right? But Karla, why are you wasting your time? It's better that you just fundraise to build a shelter. I can help you. I can give you all the money to do that. I was like, thank you, but I don't think that's the way to change the world. I truly believe that what these people need is not so much a shelter, but rather that somebody goes, bends down all the way to the floor, looks into their eyes, and asks them, what's your name? My name is Karla. I want to hear about you. And they start crying. And maybe I didn't give them any food, any water, but they are so grateful. And almost every time they tell me, you have been Jesus for me today, thank you so much, right? And this is all I need. And maybe they're hungry, but they don't ask for that. So this is just like an introduction to this beautiful course that we will be sharing together, right? So we know that we will have 5 sessions. I wish we had more, right? I don't know if Stephanie or Katie shared with you, but I wrote a whole book about the gaze. It's in Spanish, that's why I don't even promote it here, because you would just see it and smile. And guess how? It looks beautiful, but that's all. There's a lady that is helping me translate it, but of course she's volunteering, so I cannot pressure. I wish I could hey, give me the draft now. But I have to give her the time. So anyway, we chose 5 topics of all what we could say about the gaze. And the first topic is this fears and desires that we hold in our hearts. And we will try to understand that connection that actually exists between the world of our hearts, that is like a whole universe, right? And the impact that emotional world has in my eyes. So that's we're gonna try to cover that in this session, in this formation talk. And here, I don't know if you know who Romano Guardini is. When I decided to write this book about the gays, I spoke with Father John Bertunik. I imagine you know who he is. He's a very famous legionary writer and speaker. So he coached me. I was blessed with his mentoring and accompaniment. And he told me, well, Karla, what are the books that you have read about the topic? I'm like, sorry, it's because I've tried to find them, but there's no books about the gays. Like, I haven't. And Romano Guardini is like the closest that I've gotten to read. He actually talks a lot about it, but it's not that he has developed this treatise. Sorry for my English, by the way. I mean, no, like a topic. Treatise, that's the word. Tratado. Treatise? Treatise? Okay, yeah. So it's not that he has developed that, but I've seen that in many of his writings where he speaks about other topics, he gets some very, very good quotes about the gaze. Anyway, he says this: the gaze of our eyes comes from the heart. And when I read that, I remember I was like, well, yeah, we have seen it, we have heard it, right? Like, the eyes are the window of the soul. It's like another, at least in Spanish, that's typical. I don't know if they say it in English, but that through the eyes you can see what's going on inside. And there I just started to connect the dots, and of course it makes total sense. It's as if you can imagine that there's this invisible cable that connects my heart with my eyes, and then that invisible cable is like antennas that are going there trying to connect with someone, okay? But those antennas are connected all the way, like they have the roots in our heart. It's not only the eyes, they are connected in our heart, with our heart. So then that is why Romano Guardini says that, like, I use this image to explain in a more colloquial way the depth of these quotes that he has, right? But then look, also putting together with some teachings of John Paul II and theology of the body, he would always say that our body is a gift because it's the means that God gave us to be able to transmit and to show love to others. Love is a spiritual reality, obviously, right? We all know what love is, and we need to feel loved, and we have that beautiful desire in our hearts. But imagine, for example, the angels. I wonder sometimes, how do they express love? Because they cannot give a hug. They are spiritual beings, right? They don't have that gift of, through maybe a gaze. Has it happened to you that you just look into the eyes of someone and you find this beautiful connection? Has it happened to you, right? Maybe with your husbands, you reach a moment when you no longer need to talk. You're just looking into each other's eyes, and you know all the love that is there. And you can also read all the pain that might be there, right? And there's this beautiful connection. Why? Because of that invisible cable that comes all the way from the heart, connects to the eyes, and through my eyes, when they, imagine my eyes have these antennas, and when there's eye contact, it's as if those two antennas of the heart of that person and my heart, boom, all of a sudden they are connected. And there's this electricity that happens, this chemistry, right? Even our body feels it. When you reach eye contact with someone, sometimes we start having physiological reactions, right? There's an increase in your heart rate, and you want to sigh, right? And there's maybe you blush, your pupils grow, right? Especially when you're in love, when you're seeing someone that you actually love. All those physiological effects happen when there's that connection. And then you start reading, you're able and you're enabled to read what's going on in the soul of that other person. So the human eyes are the window into the soul, right? Now, through the eyes, we can reach that intimacy just through a glance, right? Our eyes carry the message of who we are and how we are. They can't not communicate. So, even for example, if you're in a gathering, or when you meet someone, has it happened to you that you meet someone that they don't do eye contact at all? So you're like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And they're like, hi, right? And they're talking, well, yeah, and this happened to me. And they are looking everywhere, but they will not look into your eyes. Even in those situations, they are already telling you a message. I don't want you in, because I am so afraid, right? or because I've been hurted, or I don't think there's anything valuable inside. So that's why I prefer to just like have my eyes wandering around, because if I ever dare to connect with your eyes, I'll get in trouble, right? So that happens many times. Even when we are trying to run away from that connection, that is already communicating something. Now here the question is, you will consciously or subconsciously, you will communicate something with your eyes. So the question is, what do you want to communicate? Because whether you like it or not, you will be communicating something with your eyes 24/7. Well, when you're sleeping, maybe you don't, right? But you will be always communicating something. When you go to the supermarket and you're there with the people, with the person that is that you pay to, you know, or when you go to a restaurant, the waitress, or when you're with your husband or with your kids, with all these Regnum Christi women, to the parish, you're always communicating something to other people through your eyes. The question is what and how aware you are of that communication that is going on. It's constantly going on, right? And there, I imagine you have also experienced how there's some people that you look into their eyes and they could be talking about very silly things, and yet their eyes are irradiating peace or joy, or there's something beautiful that you can see in the eyes of those people. They are communicating something that can be totally off from what they are actually communicating with their mouth, right? Right now, maybe imagine if I was just telling you all these beautiful things, but in my eyes I have bitterness. So yes, ladies, you are communicating something with your eyes, okay? Is that clear? Or maybe I can just like decorate it and try to say it in a beautiful way, but if my eyes that are connected with my heart are communicating a different message, that will actually have a greater impact than my words. So how much we are aware of that communication that is going on. We can't not communicate. And then when I was writing my book, I was trying to find a way to express this idea, and I came up with this term, the demolishing effect of the gaze. So I wanted to find a term that would express destruction, but not with a negative connotation. Because I thought, well, maybe the destructive effect, but that has a negative connotation. And that destruction, sometimes it's actually very healing, okay? So then I was thinking, yeah, in my life, I have had those gazes, people that look at me, that because of the judgments, that, you know, when we create a judgment about someone else, that judgment becomes actually a filter that doesn't allow me to see the person as that person truly is. It's like, I don't know, let's say that I'm looking at Stephanie, just because I don't know all the names. If not, I would say any other name, but Stephanie, right? And maybe I think, oh, Stephanie's driving me crazy with all her emails, and then I see her, oh, hi Stephanie, right? And I'm like, I want to run away because she's gonna give me work. And of course, I already have that filter. It's not true, okay? I'm just saying as a joke. But imagine that I had that, if I had that judgment of, oh, Stephanie is this kind of people that will put people to work, and no, totally contrary, actually, she was very helpful. But my judgment will immediately show one way or another, right? And actually, like, there's another book that is called What Everybody, but different words, What Everybody is Saying. And it's a book about body language, right? And how our bodies can actually irradiate what is actually happening inside. Even though I can tell her, oh, it's so good to see you, but I'm like this, my body is communicating, I want to run away, right? And you're there. So it's very interesting. But also, that can be many times confirmed by our eyes, right? So the demolishing effect, where I experienced it in Colombia, in those years that I told you how in my community I just felt so judged because I wanted many things to change, and that I didn't see that they were changing. Now, thanks be to God, they have changed. But and then there were many other consecrated that were like, no, we shouldn't change that. We should just continue as we were. And they just thought that I was this impatient consecrated woman that didn't want to be a consecrated, that I just wanted to do things my own way. And of course, I felt their judgments, and their judgments destroyed in me that freedom to be myself. And I remember that it was so uncomfortable because I would arrive back home and I would feel like stiff, and I would feel usually I'm a very outgoing person and I like to play jokes and I'm like that, but in those years I remember that I became this bitter woman, and I was like, what is happening to me? I don't recognize myself. But it was because, of course, when you feel that there's that judgment, that they're not seeing Karla, they are seeing the Karla that they have in their head, right? It's different. When you see other people, are you actually seeing the person, or are you just seeing an image where all your filters are being reflected and all your judgments are being portrayed in that person, right? But we are not allowing that person to be herself or himself. So it is very interesting that the impact that our judgments can create in our human relationships and in the way we look at other people. So that's a negative side of the demolishing effect. But now what happens that something that I remember healed me, something that actually, okay. Something that healed me is in that course that I told you I took about the gaze. I remember this woman that I just met her there, right? But she was a very special woman in my life. Like, she has become someone very special. And I remember that I was with all these struggles, right, interior struggles, and I was feeling I'm not worth, and I'm this horrible consecrated, so rebellious. I'm like the problem child. Actually, that's how they called me in my community. But now it's a joke. Before it was like they really believed that I was the problem child. But anyway, so I started to believe all those things, right, in my head. And then I remember it was so random. We were about to start Mass, and I went to this woman that I had just met 3 days before, and I asked her something like, where are the song books or something like that? And so random my question, but then she just turned around. She grabbed me from my arms, and she looked straight into my eyes, and she told me, Karla, you irradiate so much love in your eyes. Did you know that? I just started to cry because I was like, thank you. Nobody had ever told me that in years, right? Like, nobody close. Of course, the people I work with, yes, but I told you, right, I was with that division. So for me, it was like so healing, because I was like, this lady doesn't know me. She has no judgments, and she could see something that even I forgot that I'm actually not a bad person. I'm just trying my best in a very bad way, right? we were all wounded, and we were just trying to fix our woundedness and trying to defend from all this pain that we were all passing through. But then that demolished in me the lies that I am not lovable, that I am not enough, that I am not a good consecrated woman. So you see how the demolishing effect can have very beautiful impact also in our lives. And here I can ask you this question. Is there someone in your life that you think of that could say that your gaze has demolished lies in their life? Try to think of that. Is there someone in my life that has experienced through my gaze that God has demolished lies that were keeping them like in chains, that were not allowing them to be themselves? Have I allowed my eyes to show that and to do that beautiful act of love to another person? Or maybe I have never even tried it, right? Or maybe, is there someone that through my gaze has felt that something broke, and that maybe they, because of the way I was looking at them, now they live in this lie that they are not enough, or that they are not lovable. Not only not loved, but not lovable, because that's a big difference, right? We can feel, oh, I'm not loved by this person, but it becomes a big problem when it's not only I'm not loved by her or by him, but I'm not lovable, because that touches my identity. It's not only an incapacity of that person to love me, it's like I am the problem. I am not lovable. I hope we all can say no. I don't think that there's someone that could say that, right? But you can ask yourself, have I used my eyes in such a way that have led someone to come to that false certainty of I am not lovable, I am not worth, I am not enough, I am, and there you put all these defects, right? So that is the demolishing effect of the gaze, right? If it's a gentle gaze, it demolishes lies, but if it's a hurting gaze, it will demolish foundational certainties. God can use also hurting gazes for something good. It can also happen, right? I don't know if you ever watched the movie Brooklyn. Have you watched it? No? It's about this Irish woman, young woman that comes to the US back in like after all the Irish crisis, and so she came here and she fell in love with this guy and she gets married, but then she has to go back to Ireland because someone dies, and she gets married, but then when she's in Ireland she meets this other guy that she falls in love with, and there is this other woman that she's like these kind of women that are always like snakes trying to build criticism and like weeds to sow weed. So then she somehow finds out that she's flirting with this guy while she's already married. So she goes and tells her, and she's just like looking at her in that way. And in that moment, this girl just realizes, actually, yes, like, thank you for reminding me with your hatred gaze. You're reminding me my identity and who I am, and yes, I am married. Thank you so much, because your judgment is allowing me to see that yes, I belong to this man, right? So she breaks that relationship, and it's, well, I'm telling you the story. I hope I'm not ruining it. In case you see the movie, I won't tell you the end, even though I already told it almost everything. But so that is how God can sometimes use a hurting gaze to bring us back to who we truly are, right? Or to who we are called to be. So then, what are the human fears that we have and the gaze? Here, there's a study done by, I've read it from actually two different psychiatrists. Marisa Peer is a psychiatrist from the UK, and she has developed this theory. And also, I've seen Chloe Madanes is her name. She's an Argentinian psychiatrist. That they like, and I've also read it right now. For example, another consecrated woman in my community, she's studying a master's degree in psychology, and we were sharing, and she's like, oh yeah, they are teaching me that also at Divine Mercy University. So it's very interesting to see how when we start developing psychological patterns and all these pathologies, they say that we all have two roots, because we start developing these patterns because of these fears. That maybe I feel that in my life I am not being loved, or that I feel that I am not being enough, right? Every psychological problem narrows down to these two main problems. That I feel that I'm not loved and not lovable, and that I feel that I'm not enough, right? That I feel unworthy of being chosen and cherished. And this even more for us as women. Sorry, fathers. I mean, it also applies to men, but especially for women, that we all have in our nature as women to be cherished, to be pursued, to be admired, right? We want actually to be an event in the heart of someone else, right? We want to be discovered. I want to be an event in the heart of someone else, at least one person. I just need one person to experience that something when they see me and when they get to know me. And if that one person exists, then I'm saved from despair. But if I don't find that one person, then I fall into psychological things, right? Issues. And it's so much difficult. That is why I always think, well, even if you are this horrible person with all these defects and you think you're good at nothing, at least you have Jesus. How easy it is for us Catholics and Christians to be saved from that tendency to drive nuts if we don't find this, because at least we know, well, if nobody loves me, which I hope is not the case for any of us here, at least we know that God does love us, right? We are an event in the heart of God. And not only like God, but Jesus, He is a human person. he has a heart, a physical heart that beats hard when he looks at us, right? So these are the fears, and then these psychiatrists and psychologists, they also have seen that, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? If those are my fears, then my greatest desires are kind of the opposite. So all human persons will have in our hearts this desire to be discovered, to be an event in someone else's heart. And we also want to be unconditionally loved, right? To find someone that can actually love me just as I am. And here I recommend you, if you haven't read a book that is called Real Love, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books, Real Love from Breck Baer. That's a beautiful love that talks about this need that we all have of finding unconditional love. And then what happens? Like, how do these desires and fears connect with our eyes? Well, if I have the desire of being discovered, how am I gonna experience that I'm already discovered if it's not through eye contact, right? Try to remember, I imagine most of you are married, so try to remember that moment when you knew that your husband was totally fascinated by you. Try to remember that moment. Did it have to do with something of his eyes? Did he somehow express it in his eyes? Maybe yes, right? Maybe not, but maybe his eyes told you, oh, I have been finally discovered by this guy and he's so cute, right? So that's when our heart starts to flourish and to bloom, and when we find out, wow, like, this person really knows me. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a romantic encounter. It can be also a good friend that you have, or a spiritual director, or a priest, or someone that looked into your heart and they saw there's a treasure hidden there, and I have seen it, right? We need to be discovered. I think we are running out of time, so I'm gonna skip this part. Yeah, I'm just gonna finish with this quote that I read from a Japanese sculptor. How do you say that, Father? Escultor? Sculptor. I always get it wrong. So there is this Japanese sculptor that said, a piece of art will not be completed until it is discovered, until it is contemplated by someone else. You see, there's a beautiful, beautiful depth in this, because we all are a piece of art created by God. Even if you have the worst, like if you think horrible about yourself, I hope it's not the case, but even if you have yourself in this very low esteem and you think you're good for nothing because I'm so shy and I'm so incapable and I don't have all those talents, you are a piece of art. And if you don't accept that, you are saying a lie to yourself, because you are a piece of art. But that piece of art needs to be contemplated by someone else to be completed, right? Imagine if Michelangelo had done this beautiful Pietà and he had hidden it in a room. And imagine that he died and nobody saw it, and it's hidden there in a room. It would not be completed. Like, the world would be missing something so beautiful, right? But now we have it there in the Vatican, and everybody can enter and you can see it for free, because it's just there for everyone to see it. So that piece of art has been completed, right? It's like a flower that is blooming on top of a mountain that nobody goes there. It's gonna die, right? And it's a pity, because it was created for being contemplated. I mean, it's still glorifying God, but there's something that is missing. So with this, we can pass now to the small group discussion. I hope that these questions can actually allow you to go deeper. I imagine you have them printed, right? Yes? Okay. So just try to recall that gaze that made you feel unlovable, and then the opposite, that made you feel deeply known and loved. And then, has my gaze had a demolishing effect on someone else's life? And then the last question is more connected to our charism, right? Is there any connection between the content of this talk and our charism in Regnum Christi? So enjoy your time I am sure that the Holy Spirit can speak a lot also through all what you have to share. Don't be afraid of sharing. Sharing is something beautiful that will allow you to be discovered. Okay? God bless.
So I just want to suggest as you do the questions, I think we have enough time. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
As it should, like looking at you. So, such a gift. But it would be wonderful if maybe one person from each table would feel comfortable sharing, kind of summarizing your thoughts and then sharing them with the group. I think that's where we really grow. So, what if we say, if we're good, 11:15? And then we'll share for 15 minutes, just a quick synopsis. And then with our beautiful priests, they are available for confession. It's been such a beautiful talk, but they will be available for confession in the church, Father? Okay, great. Till 11:30? Okay, so we are blessed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna be really conscious now, okay. Thank you. Yeah, Karla, that was beautiful.
Oh no, you're very welcome.